At the start of our story, we see an old man coughing his lungs out, dramatically announcing, "I am an earthling from a civilized society. I came from a civilized society." Yeah, he's definitely not okay. Just then, a little girl enters his house, carrying food. She says, "Mr. Seo, are you okay? My mother sent this for you." This is where we learn his name, Seo, once a man from Earth, now a very tired, very unlucky old man. He thanks the girl, and as she sets down the food, she cheerfully replies, "Please get well soon and make more soap." Then, without hesitation, she runs off into the middle of a snowstorm like it's no big deal. Kids, right? Now, here's the truth about Seo. 50 years ago, he was just an ordinary office worker. One day, while on his way to a workshop with his colleagues, disaster struck. A landslide swallowed them whole, and when they woke up, surprise! They were in a martial arts fantasy world. Imagine this: a fox the size of a house with 3 tails, a giant 2-headed snake, and sword-wielding maniacs flying through the sky. Basically, every fantasy novel he skimmed during lunch break had come to life. Among the 7 people who fell into this world, Seo was the odd one out. Within 3 days, powerful sages descended from the heavens and handpicked his co-workers because apparently, they were all secret prodigies. Each one was whisked away to a glorious destiny. And Seo? He and Director Kim were left behind. No magical talents. No heavenly mentors. Just 2 regular dudes in the wrong story. For 6 months, they did nothing but manual labor just to eat. But eventually, Director Kim snapped. He blew all his savings on a shady street martial arts book that everyone laughed at. And guess what? 3 months later, Kim had mastered it. Turns out, the guy was a hidden genius after all. From then on, Kim rose higher and higher, serving the nation, mastering advanced techniques, and eventually heading off to the legendary martial world of Jianghu. And poor Seo? Well, he was still waiting for his special moment. Spoiler alert, it never came. Now, 50 years later, Seo is just an old man coughing up blood, dying from something as stupid as a common cold. He reflects on his wasted life, how he learned the language, worked as a laborer, bought land, built his own house, and even tried his hand at business. The man actually invented soap in a medieval world. Yes, soap, the lifesaver of hygiene. For a while, that gave him some money and stability. But of course, life wasn't done kicking him while he was down. Thieves learned his method, copied it, and undercut him. The market that once let him breathe finally booted him out. Business gone. Pride gone. Everything gone. Now, he was waiting for the end. Alone in that small house, coughing blood into a cloth, he asked the world, not quietly, either, "What do you want from me? I tried my hardest. What must I do?" It wasn't a heroic speech. It was the voice of a man who had been rejected so many times he'd stopped expecting anything else. Tears came. Weak, angry, messy tears. "Why wasn't I chosen? Why does everything slip away?" he whispered. The answer was the same old silence. He no longer had the energy to keep his eyes open. Hope had taken its last breath. Then his life ended. Simple as that. And then, a light. He blinked. Opened his eyes. The room was the same, but not. He looked at his own hand. Youth. No sagging skin. Fingers steady. He was wearing clothes that did not belong to this world, a blue shirt and sweatpants, the kind of thing you wear on Earth when you've given up trying to impress anyone. Seo looked around, trying to place the feeling like a half-remembered song. Then he saw them. Director Kim. Chiefo, Section Chief Jian. Deputy Manager Kong. Deputy Manager O, Manager Kim. Heart pounding. Air different. Memory sharp and cruel. He had regressed. Not reincarnated, not transmigrated, regression. He'd been sent back to an earlier time. His life had rewound. This was Seo's first regression. Director Kim ran his hands through hair that was half-shaved and said, confused, "What is happening? We were just on our way to a workshop." He didn't know why they were here. But CO did. This was the first day. The day of the landslide. 50 years of pain, jammed into a single memory flash that was fuzzy around the edges but still seared into his mind. CO thought wildly. In every regression novel he'd ever read, and yes, he'd read a few people use future knowledge to thrive. Stock picks, lottery numbers, martial arts secrets. He had two talents in his pocket, stubbornness and soap. That was it. His brain supplied a resigned, bitter joke, great. My superpower is making detergent. Someone's voice behind him snapped the daydream. Hey, deputy manager. The voice was Section Chief Jian. CO trembled. He'd forgotten the old title he once wore, Deputy Manager CO Yunhyun. The name landed like a stone. CO started to explain he'd been startled. Before he could finish, Jian's hand cut the air, a sharp slap across CO's face. Silence crashed down. Everyone froze. Section Chief Jian's face was thunder. Deputy Manager CO, you dozed off while driving on a mountainside. You almost got us all killed. The accusation hung in the cold air like a verdict. CO's head rang. He felt foolish, terrified, and faintly ridiculous, like a man who had died, come back, and then been publicly roasted for nodding off. But more than anything, he felt opportunity, a raw, terrible, blinding chance to change what would come next. Because this time, he knew what the future looked like. And he had soap. He hadn't seen Section Chief Jian Monghan in a long time. Which is rude, because Jian made sure everyone remembered him mostly by being loud, entitled, and very proud of nepotism. At 32 he'd already snagged the position because he was the nephew of the company's executive director. Merit? Optional. When Jian lunged at CO in blind fury, Shifo stood up and put a hand between them. Enough, he said. The landslide wasn't Deputy Manager CO's fault. But Jian wasn't listening. Aren't you angry, Shifo? He spat, eyes wild. This idiot dozed off, that's why we're stranded. CO remembered, with that slow, sinking ache of memory, that he had dozed. It wasn't because he was weak. It was because Jian had piled all his work on CO the night before, the kind of favors that feel like sandbags in the dark. Originally Jian was supposed to drive. Originally everything was supposed to be different. Pointing a trembling finger at CO, Jian barked, "This stupid bastard, we're stranded because of him." That word "stupid" used to be a bell that tolled inside CO. For 50 years, it had rung every time he apologized, every time he let himself be crushed, by bandits, by officials, by bullies. He spent half a lifetime saying sorry because it hurt less than fighting back. But something in him had shifted. The old automatic apology snapped off like a weak wire. CO stood up. The air tightened. Section Chief Jian, CO said, voice flat. Now is not the time for finger pointing. Jian charged like a spoiled storm. He punched. CO felt the punch, tasted the old rhythm of being hit, and then he did the one thing his past self had never dared, he fought back. He turned and punched Jian straight in the face, hard enough to send the man sprawling. Silence fell. Everyone froze, mouths opening and closing like half-souls. CO didn't stop. The punches came steady, not blind flails but the quick, pragmatic strikes of a man who'd been broken many times and learned exactly where to hit. Jian's bravado crumpled into something smaller. Fear replaced fury. Two words slipped out, brittle and automatic, "I'm sorry." That was the moment the room realized the math had changed. These people had talent for flashy moves, titles, and posturing. What they lacked was something CO had in strange abundance: lived violence, the kind of hardened, unromantic toughness that makes people flinch when you stop apologizing and start acting. CO might not possess mythical cultivation or a fabled talent. But he had regression, a second chance, and he had memory. He knew how the years ahead would go. He also had the ugly, useful knowledge of how to make people afraid enough to stop hurting him. For the first time in 50 years, he didn't feel like a man waiting to be stepped on. He hadn't been chosen by those transcendent beings. He didn't have a miraculous talent that would make him celebrated in the martial world. What he did have, however, was something rarer, the chance to change what would happen next. Director Kim, Chief O, Deputy Manager Kong, Deputy Manager O, and Manager Kim stared at CO with wary, almost fearful eyes. Director Kim finally spoke, voice trembling with disbelief and something like concern. Deputy Manager CO, how could you beat a colleague like that? No matter what, that's. CO didn't argue. He bowed, neat and quick. You're right, Director Kim. I lost my temper. I apologize for startling everyone. He kept the apology short and tasteful. Because theatrics would only invite trouble, Director Kim nodded slightly. Section Chief Jian was harsh, yes. And the landslide wasn't your fault. Still, you went too far. Apologize to him directly. CO understood. Director Kim would one day become a powerful martial artist, he'd seen it in his past life. If CO supported him now, it could pay off later. Winning Director Kim's favor mattered. He turned toward Jian, extended a hand, and said evenly, my reaction was too much. I apologize. Jian's face was swollen from CO's blows. His fists clenched, fury in his eyes. But when he met CO's gaze, cold, fearless, utterly unshaken, he stopped. He turned away in silence. The tension slowly ebbed. Director Kim looked out at the endless trees and said, why don't we try leaving this forest? Maybe there's a village nearby. CO agreed out loud, it was the logical suggestion. But inside, he knew the truth. This was the ascension path. Here, immortals soared above, chasing eternity, while mortals fought with swords for scraps of power. The only law here was simple, the strong devour the weak. There were no villages, no nations, no safe havens. Only blood and survival. Still, he offered calmly, the sun will set soon. Let's focus on finding shelter first. Director Kim hesitated, then nodded. What about the car? We packed supplies for the workshop. Food, tools, we'll need them. CO already knew they'd never find it. The car was gone. But convincing them now would only waste energy. Better to let reality teach them. We should split up, he suggested. One group searches for shelter, the other searches for the car. We meet back here before nightfall. By dusk, CO had already secured a cave and lit a fire. The group gathered around the flames, exhausted, chewing quietly on what little they had. Then, breaking the silence, a black-haired girl frowned and said, I don't get it. We were caught in a landslide while in the car, the black-haired girl said, frowning. So how did we end up here, with the car completely gone? Director Kim nodded. I don't understand it either. As they ate, another girl picked up a piece of food and nibbled. This tastes like chestnuts, she commented. Chief O chuckled. Crunchy, isn't it? I've got plenty. Eat as much as you like. The mood lightened. Director Kim laughed. This is a serious situation, but thanks to Manager CO, we're still having fun. He turned toward CO. Back at the company, I knew you were dependable. I didn't expect you'd be even more reliable out here. Everyone chimed in with agreement. A brown-haired girl added, Manager CO really is diligent. A red-haired girl smiled. It even feels like we're on a camping trip, thanks to this cave he found. CO knew the truth, this cave had only been discovered much later in his past life, after everyone had wandered lost in the woods for hours. But he only gave a modest smile. I was just lucky. The others laughed and insisted he take the compliment. CO thought to himself, let them laugh. Tonight will be the last time they'll ever laugh like this. The next morning, CO's entire body trembled. He stood outside the cave and bowed low. Greetings, to the Lord of the Forest. Towering before him was a massive seven-tailed fox. Its fur shimmered like blood-red flames, and its glowing eyes locked onto him. You carry a strange scent, human, the fox said with a cold smile. Even after thousands of years, I have never smelled a human like you. Hearing the rumbling voice, the black-haired girl stumbled outside, rubbing her eyes. Manager CO, what happened? She froze, staring at the beast. Her eyes widened in terror. Then she screamed. Her cry woke the rest of the group. One by one, they rushed outside only to stop dead when they saw the enormous fox. The moment the sight registered, their fear broke loose. Screams filled the air. Silence! Co barked, glaring at them. Show your manners to the Lord of the Forest, get on your knees. The fox's tail swayed, amused. Every time I meet humans, I'm reminded how foolish and rude you are. Normally, I would tear your limbs apart. His voice rumbled like thunder. But, one among you knows how to show respect. Because of him, I will spare you. Relief flickered through the group, but it was short-lived. Still, the fox continued, eyes narrowing, you trespassed into my territory. There must be a price. Offer me an arm, only then may you stay here. The color drained from everyone's faces. Fear gripped them tighter than chains. Co's heart pounded. In his past life, this moment had ended in disaster. The group had panicked, screamed, and angered the fox. All of them had died horribly. But now there was one difference. This time, the fox had noticed Co's manners. And for the first time, Co felt the faintest flicker of hope. The seven-tailed fox didn't tear them apart this time. That was the worrying thing. It was calculating. It licked its lips and asked, very politely, who would give it an arm? Co did the math in one beat. One arm. One person. 2 days until the cultivators showed up to fix things. He already had an herb prepared to dull the pain. It was ugly, but it worked on paper. So he stripped off his sleeve, held out his hand, and offered it. Silence. Shock. A chorus of impossible thoughts. The fox smiled, if a carnivore can smile, and said, you know your manners. I'll make this as painless as possible. Then it lunged. The scream was a clean thing. The fox bit Co's hand off. It ate it. People looked away. Co grabbed the pain herb with his remaining hand, forced it down. Tears streamed. The pain was that kind of immediate, holy fire that makes everything else small. The herb worked better than he expected. It dulled the edge enough for him to think. The fox chewed, sniffed, and politely judgmental remarked Co tasted like any other human. Worse, it said, because of the impurities in your veins. After that, because the world here loved bureaucracy as much as blood, the fox made a bargain. It would let them stay in its territory for 7 days. They would not die under its protection. After that, they would have to offer something else. The rules were blunt and mechanical. Give something. Live a little longer. Then the creature vanished into the sky with a speed that made the ground feel unbearably slow. When the fox was gone, the group rushed to Co. He stood, pale and raw, and told them to come inside the cave. He needed wood. He needed water. He needed them to sit and listen. He told them what had happened that morning. How the fox had taken one of them as a test. How they were now in Murim. The words landed like rocks. Director Kim could barely believe it. Murim, he asked. Co's answer didn't make it better, yes. And because I gave my arm, we're safe for 7 days. 7 days? Director Kim asked, breath short. Co told them the truth. After a week, the fox's protection would require another payment. He'd learned that by experience. Their safety was purchased in weekly installments of flesh. The group stared. The idea of weekly sacrifice was too loud to be immediately processed. It felt like a joke made of knives. The herb sedative pull took him next. Co said he was tired and lay down. Sleep took him hard and unfairly good. 15 hours later, Co woke alone. Silence filled the cave like an accusation. The stump where his hand had been throbbed. The fire had gone low. Embers blinked. Footsteps were gone. The cave smelled faintly of smoke and haste. He sat up. The world outside the cave was still and thin. He was alone. Voices rose outside the cave. Seo crept close enough to hear. They were arguing about him. Who would give up an arm every week? Jian snarled. Practical question, terrible human. Who wants to lose limbs for this, Forrest? Seo keeps the fire going, Shifo snapped back. He keeps food coming. He's useful. Jian's solution was blunt and cowardly. Learn from him for a week. Then force him to be the sacrifice again, he's already weakened anyway. He didn't know Seo was awake. He didn't know Seo was listening. That sentence hit like an insult sharpened with a blade. That's all for today's. If you want part 2 of this manhwa recap, drop a comment below and let me know. Your support keeps the story rolling.